See, Red Nation, what is good? Torrey Craig is reportedly opting into his contract. What does that mean for the Chicago Bulls moving forward? And what does he bring back to the Bulls? We'll talk about all that and more on today's episode of the Windy City Breeze Sports Talk Daily. Let's go. Now, if you are new to the channel, please like the video. Please subscribe to the page. We do talk Chicago sports daily on this channel. It's the only channel to talk Chicago sports, how Chicago talks. So make sure that you stay in tune with us, man. So per Adrian Wojnarowski, Torrey Craig has picked up his $2.8 million player option to return to the Chicago Bulls for the 2024-2025 season. Why is this actually good news for the Chicago Bulls? To me, this is good news. And when you talk about the fact that Torrey Craig coming back, definitely didn't have the season he had hoped to have last season, health-wise, right? Only 19 minutes a game last season, but only playing in 53 games. He still shot 39% for the three-point line, so still coming and giving you a little bit of that stretch 3-4 kind of player. But the thing for me that makes this a good move for the Chicago Bulls, the fact that Torrey Craig is opting back in, is it gives you one of two options. Now, one, we already know that Torrey Craig is a piece who, if you included him in a trade that with one of these players that are going out, you could see him absolutely be able to go out there and make an impact on a winning team, and teams would want a player like him in an accompanying trade, right? So it makes some of these sign and trade possibilities with DeMar DeRozan, or the fact that we hear about the Zach Lavine news that basically people don't want to. We'll talk about that as well. But basically, like, if you included a first round pick, it wouldn't matter. But maybe, right, a piece that you can throw in as a bargaining chip. I think the fact that you have more assets on this team makes it more appealing for you in certain deals that may or may not get done if you didn't have those pieces in there. Now, that's just the trade side of it. I don't think Torrey Craig opts in if he feels like he's getting traded, right? That's not even a scenario that I think we're going to go down the path of. To me, this is the biggest positive, because you have to look at Torrey Craig coming off of the bench, being a veteran piece on a team that seems like it's trying to go towards a youth movement that's going to keep that mindset that they want to instill in place. And that's really why they brought in Torrey Craig last year, why they hope to bring in Leroy Carter. Y'all know who I'm talking about. And right, why you wanted to hold on to Alex Caruso, because having pieces on your team who are, hey, this is how we play, this is the standard we want to play at, this is how we want to go out and attack every single day. That's what you want to see, and you want to have multiple people on your team that can do that. You've got Io, you've got Kobe White, but you've got some young pieces and some new pieces coming in who are going to have to understand and conform to whatever the Chicago Bulls standard is. Now, whether that standard is high enough, that's a whole different conversation. We'll talk about that at another time. But to me, the fact that you get Torrey Craig back on this $2.8 million deal, I mean, like, this to me is a steal of a deal for a guy who can be a really good perimeter defender, who, I mean, let's be honest, when he got in the game over Patrick Williams, he had more of an impact in those games, right? Defensively, you saw a little bit more from him. Offensively, he could knock down the three. He was still consistent, going after rebounds and different things like that. So I think, and you saw an uptick in all of his numbers, and he kind of was a real catalyst piece when the defense was at its best last season. So the fact that you get him back, I think that's really good for the Chicago Bulls, and I think it's something big that the Bulls can. It's not something you want to hang your hat on, right? That you're getting back a guy like Torrey Craig. It's not like this is the move of the offseason, but it's something that you know you can count on, and you can hang your hat on that. You can hang your hat on Torrey Craig's contribution that he's going to give to this team. And I think that's why this is an important get back, because you don't have enough room, if you're still trying to be competitive like the Chicago Bulls are, to go out there and say, well, you know what, we're just going to throw everybody out there and wing it. We know that there's a conversation on going with the youth movement. We had that conversation on the video. We just dropped that clip today. But there's also a conversation on being competitive, and this Bulls team wants to remain competitive. They don't want the youth movement to go out there and lose 50 games. They don't want to hold on to their first round pick next season. They would rather see this young team go out there and win enough games, and maybe, right, you to still put yourself in that region where you keep a top 10 pick and it works out for you. But we know what the Bulls front office wants to do. We know what upper management wants to do. We know what the owners of this team want to do. And so for that mission, getting Torrey Craig back is a good get. We'll see what it ends up being in the long run if he is still a part of this team moving forward. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below about the Chicago Bulls re-signing Torrey Craig. And man, listen, we also had to talk about, and I'm glad I actually had some news to come on here and break this down as well. We got the Bobby Marks report. I don't know if you guys saw this. I tweeted out earlier that even if the Chicago Bulls were to include a future first-round pick, teams would not want to trade for Zach Lavine. I thought that news was astonishing because now it's like I'm giving you all of the value. What is it about Zach that you don't like? But I mean, listen, you have to ask yourself, how does he contribute to winning? How does he contribute to the team dynamic? I think that Zach is a fine basketball player. I think that when he's healthy, he's a really good basketball player. I think there's a lot of teams that have concerns about his health. He hasn't been healthy the last couple of seasons. Even when he did play a plethora of games in that 2023 season, no, it was last year, 2022 season, right? You saw him have to fight through injury the entire season, thumb injury, knee injury, back injury, right? And there's a wonder if that's the kind of player that he's going to be. And I mean, listen, at this point, we can say it. He's an injury-prone player. How he's gone through his career, how he's gone through most of these seasons. He's had a lot of seasons end in surgery. There's a lot of talk around Zach Lavine. Yes, some of it's just cleanup and scope and stuff like that, but there's some injuries on that list that you have to say, this guy's a guy who often gets injured. So I wonder if that's a question mark that's really big on this, especially with the contract that's attached to him. But we've seen guys like this with big contracts get moved, right? Bradley Beal was a dude who was always getting hurt. He didn't even start the season with Phoenix this year. So it can't just be that. What else is it about Zach Lavine that teams are really going, you know, we like Zach, we'd love to keep him around, but let's be real, like we're not making this move right now, per Bobby Marks. I wonder if it has something to do with how little he's impacted winning in his time in the NBA. And what I mean by that is, if you look it up, Zach Lavine, and listen, this has to do with the teams that he was on. This has to do with, how he was basically thrown out there, how he was, this is your team, you go out there and figure it out kind of player, right? But Zach Lavine's career winning percentage is the worst of any player in the NBA right now who has played over 500 games. He's played 580 games in his career. He's got a career win percentage of 0.372. I don't know why I struggle with that. That is the worst win percentage of anybody who's played more than 500 games in the NBA. And I wonder if there is a real question when people look at Zach Lavine and say, how does he impact winning? How does he have an impact on the guys on the floor? Does he make the guys around him better? Even being the second or third option, you still want to make the players on the team that you're around better, right? What does he do that leads to winning? And if you look throughout his career, there hasn't been a ton of that. Heck, more times than not, when we've talked about Zach Lavine coming back, we've talked about the team having to adjust to him and usually seeing the Bulls take a step back. When he came back last season, Kobe White took a step back. DeMar DeRozan took a step back. The Bulls went from having that hot, I believe it was November of last season, to all of a sudden having a horrible first 7 or 8 games in December, right? Like, that's why I believe that teams are looking at Zach Lavine saying, listen, you can score, you can put all the numbers up, you can do anything that you want to do. But realistically speaking, at the end of the day, it doesn't lead to winning. And so why would we want to invest that much into it? Why would we trade for a guy like that? I wonder if that is the case. I don't know if that's the case, but it's the only thing that I can think of. Because outside of that, listen, you can't tell me that you don't want to add a guy to your team who has been last season, right? 25 games, was injured, but season before that, 77 games, even dealing with injury, 25 points per game, 5 rebounds a game, 4 assists per game, right? Like that. That's not a bad player, right? He does that on, what did he shoot that season? Shot from the 3-point line 37% that season, from the field 48%. Like, you're getting a guy who can go out there and knock down the 3 ball and who can be consistent. It's very weird how the Zach Lavine conversation has turned throughout this process, and how it seems like the Bulls have basically knocked on every single door and everybody just continues to say no. I wonder how much Jerry Reinsdorf is rejecting the packages that are coming back, or Acme's rejecting the packages that are coming back. I wonder if it's the teams basically saying, I don't even have anything I could offer you that I really want to tie myself to this player moving forward, right? Like, there's a lot of questions out there that just haven't been answered. I do wonder if this ends with Zach Lavine remaining on the Chicago Bulls. And here's my thing on that. And this is kind of what I tweeted out earlier when we talked about it. The ideal scenario in a perfect world, and I've said this a couple times, we're not in a perfect world, is Zach Lavine stays here. He figures it out. He's like, it's Kobe's team now. I can't do, you know what I mean? I'm not the answer for this team. It's Kobe White's team. Let's move into the next generation of this. Him and Giddey and Kobe work flawlessly together. You've got Patrick Williams who starts to figure some things out, and all of a sudden you find a big man out there. We heard that they're trying to trade Vooch. Maybe they trade Vooch away, and you got a different big man in here, and things change, right? That's the conversation around the perfect world that you want to see. And I hope that does happen and the relationships are fixed and everybody's happy and everything is kumbaya. I just don't see how that happens though, because I live in the real world. I live in a world where people don't just get over the things that caused them issues in the seasons before. People don't just get over the fact that you basically said, I'm not even going to help you out here and let you trade me away. I'm a do elective surgery, right? Like, to me, I wonder how much of the relationship with the front office has been broken. I wonder how much of the relationship with the player, when listen, clearly Zach Lavine knows the Chicago Bulls don't believe in him. Clearly he knows this. The Chicago Bulls don't believe in him as a player that they feel they can win with moving forward. You want to know how I know? Because in the same situation where it seems like there's a player that wants to be out in Donovan Mitchell, and there's a ton of question marks around his future in Cleveland, Cleveland's like, we don't care. He wins. We'll keep him. We'll figure this out. We're not worried about that part. He wins. We'll keep him. You're not getting that here. The Chicago Bulls look at Zach Lavine as a guy that's like, listen, if he goes, he goes. We're ready to move forward anyway. And that's the part that makes this so tough when you're sitting there looking at, okay, how are you going to move him? What are you going to be able to get back for him? Are you willing to take a loss if you're the Chicago Bulls front office? I think there's too many questions around the Zach Lavine situation right now to have a definitive answer on where this is going to go. But if it is the case that like the Bulls basically could offer the world and everybody be like, listen, we're good. Send us somebody else. You're in a bad spot because you got Zach signed for a couple more seasons. Like, you've got him here. He is locked up. And when you're holding on, when your only hope in all of this is, man, I really hope that this guy goes out there and just realizes and is humbled by the fact that nobody in the league wants him and he just plays his butt off. Like, that's all you're hoping for at this point. That's all you've got. And that's a tough place to be in. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know how you guys feel about the comments made around Zach Lavine that he could not be moved, even if a first-round pick was included in the deal. I'll be down in the comments talking with you guys as well. As always, man, it's your boy Pat the Designer back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. See Red Nation. Stand up. Peace.